Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I am Meg, and if you're new here, welcome. So here is the dresser. This is my client's dresser. It's a French Provincial piece. I love this style and I love the handles. They are so beautiful. So let's get started. First of all, my client asked if I could remove these plaques. They are plastic and usually they come off just by pulling them off with the putty knife. But I didn't realize that these ones were actually screwed on the back with plastic notches. I'll show you in a minute. But I did get them off this way. And as you can see, there's like a plastic sort of dowel shaped piece that are sticking out. So I used a small pair of pliers just to hold on to that piece while I unscrewed the back. Next time I will definitely check before ripping it off. But those pliers weren't working, so I went for the bigger ones and it came off right away. Once those were off, I got some gloves on and I used my DAP wood filler to fill in the holes where those dowels were, making sure that it was completely full and also blocking the other side as well. Next, I took off the hardware while the wood filler was drying. I love this hardware. It is so beautiful. Love the style as well. So I used my mini screwdriver, which is magnetic and perfect for fitting in drawers like this. So I took off all of the hardware on all of the drawers and put them aside. Once that was done, I got my crud cutter cleaner and started spraying the entire dresser and the top with the crud cutter. And I used a lint-free cloth to wipe it all off. Now the crud cutter is really good for removing grease and grime, and this piece had a lot of that, a lot of dirt. And it all came off really easily with the crud cutter. Make sure that once you've sprayed it on that you have removed all the excess cleaner so that you're not leaving any on the surface. So once I had cleaned the whole piece and the wood filler was dried from the holes, I used 220 sanding paper to remove, or sorry, I should say scuff up the surface, because we want better adhesion with our paint and primer. You can also use sanding pads as well, which is what I usually use. So I went around the entire piece again, just making sure that there was nothing else that needed to be filled, but there was on the corner and then on the side there were tiny little divots, like chips from the veneer. So while that wood filler was drying, I cleaned all of the hardware with crud cutter, which I find really works on hardware and gets all the grease and grime off. And a lot of dirt did come off of these. Once I had scuff sanded and sanded all over again and removed or sanded the wood filler parts, I went over with crud cutter again to make sure that it was completely clean. There were a couple of spots on top, as you can see there, that still needed to be sanded. Always make sure that your piece is completely clean before priming and painting. Once all that was done, I started to spray the primer. This is Kiltz Restoration primer, which I have recently found over the past couple of months and absolutely love it. It is such a beautiful finish. It leaves a very smooth surface once sanded and stops bleed through. So even though this product is water-based, it acts like an oil-based primer. And I have used it on some really stubborn bleed through and it has worked. So I will definitely be using this from now on. While the primer was drying, I sprayed the hardware. My client wanted them in black, so I used Rust-Oleum black in satin. So there was a little bit of a shine to it. I really love how these looked after I had sprayed them. I did about 2 coats, turning them around so that all areas got sprayed. When you're spraying hardware, make sure that you're leaving it for at least 2 days and overnight. You want to make sure that the paint surface on the hardware is not sticky or tacky. While the hardware was drying, I sanded the primer in between coats with 400 grit sandpaper, or you can use 220 as well. But here I'm using 400, which is what I had on hand. I always sand in between primer coats and paint coats. So once that had sanded and I had gotten all of the dust off, I started to spray with the paint. This is Country Chic paint in crinoline, which is like an antique white. I did about 2 coats of the paint and also sanded in between the coats. I used 1,000 grit sanding block to sand in between the coats, the paint coats, and about 2,000 sanding block for top coats. Once the paint had dried, and I did as the 2 coats, I ended up spraying with Country Chic Paint's clear coat. This is my favorite clear coat. I apologize for that plastic in the way. I am running out of space here in my spray booth. When I have longer pieces like this, I tend to not have as much room as I wish. I did about 2 coats of the top coat, and again sanding in between the coats with 2,000 sanding block, very lightly, and you have to make sure that it is completely dry before you start sanding. Here's another look at me spraying the top coat. Also, when you have drawers like this that have those edges that stick out, make sure that you're tipping your sprayer so that you're getting underneath and on top. Now it was time to put the hardware on. When they had completely dried, it's starting to look absolutely beautiful. And this is exactly what my client asked for. So my client had asked for, in several other pieces that I had done for her, for lined drawers. Now this piece, she didn't mention it, but I wanted to surprise her. So I had the perfect peel and stick wallpaper for this piece. It had the most beautiful pattern, and I knew that it would match this style and look that she wanted. This wallpaper is from Fathead Company in the US, and they do ship to Canada as well. All I had to do was measure the drawer inside the drawer and then use an X-Acto knife to cut around. And then I just peeled off the backing and placed it in. Make sure that you can peel off slightly so that you don't have any air bubbles. And here is what it looks like. The finish turned out absolutely beautiful. It just looks smooth. It turned out how she wanted it, and it went to its new home, and she loves it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for your support, and thank you for subscribing and liking and commenting. I really appreciate it. I should have a video out next Sunday on Boxing Day. We shall see, but keep an eye and I will let you know in my community tab on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like this video. Thanks again, and I hope you all have a wonderful holiday break and Merry Christmas.